Welcome back to the Safe House. This might be a short video today. I just want to touch on a couple things. Back to Israel. I can be critical of what it sounds like the left a lot. And it's really my intention to be critical of things that I believe warrant criticism. Okay? So, and I've said before, it's overwhelmingly Republicans, House, Senate, executive. There's a reason for that. We had 4 years of a disaster. Does that mean that I think that all Democratic cabinets have been a disaster? No. Do I think that all will be a disaster? No. Let me make clear something. I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am an independent who will vote. Well, actually, I haven't voted in a while. Whose opinion, and there's a reason for that we'll talk about. And I know, say what you want. Well, you can have an opinion if you're going to vote. I'm not going to vote. Yes, I can and do. I will be critical of and or support who I believe would be a good president or a good senator or congressman or governor. This, I believe, represents what needs to happen more often. The vast majority of people are not going to vote outside of their party. I can almost guarantee that there were all kinds of Democrats that were like, RFK Jr., woo! And then all of a sudden he left the Democratic Party and they're, oh, guy's fucking lunatic. This is dangerous. This is not indicative of free-thinking, critical thinking people, constituents. It's called identity politics. So, yeah, when we do this, we lose track of issues. Now, not everybody, clearly, not everybody is going to only vote for the party that they belong to for a long time or the party that their parents belong to. I'm a registered Republican. Because when I first registered to vote, my dad was a Republican. So I registered as a Republican. Two different terms. I think I voted as a Republican. And then I stopped voting because I lost faith in the voting process. And because I was too busy and distracted doing other shit. Which I would not say is a good thing. So when I sound critical of the left more often than the right now, it's just because I believe that they have derailed. I mean, I was a fan of RFK Jr. when he was a Democrat. I was a fan of Tulsi Gabbard when she was a Democrat. It did not surprise me. Trump used to be a Democrat. The trajectory of the Democratic Party has changed drastically in the last 20 years, 15, 20 years. Old Bush-era war dogs supported Biden and Harris. But when we just blindly follow a party because of our egos and our lack of humility and the inability or the lack of willingness to admit we're wrong, aka humility, this all goes right out the fucking window. So I want to touch on, if we remember correctly, when Putin invaded Ukraine, either at that point or soon after, the ICC, the International Crimes Court, issued a warrant for his arrest. Well, after October 7th, when Benjamin Netanyahu, as the Prime Minister of Israel, started committing genocide in Gaza. And it is genocide. I mean, it would... I don't think anybody's going to convince me otherwise. You can try, and I'll listen. But, Amnesty International, their European organizations have all called this genocide. But the ICC issued a warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu's arrest as well. I watched Trudeau, an interview with Trudeau, a short clip of Trudeau say, that they would have to honor this. If Benjamin Netanyahu came to Canada, they would have to apprehend him. Well, hold on here. Let's think about this for a second. Does nobody remember seeing Biden in the same room as Benjamin Netanyahu? Doesn't anybody remember just not that long ago seeing Trump sitting right next to Benjamin Netanyahu? This international fugitive? I think that's what that's called. I think that if under the International Crimes Court there is a warrant issued for your arrest and you don't turn yourself in and you remain on the lam, how do they say that? You were considered a fugitive. And I think, now I'm not exactly sure how this works with the International Crimes Court, but I thought that if you give refuge to a fugitive, that's called harboring a fugitive. Or if you're helping a criminal commit a crime, like bankrolling their criminal organization, wouldn't that be considered an accomplice? Just a thought. So I wanted to bring this up as a point that we've talked about. The reality that we think we live in doesn't exist for most people. I talked about this when the question of 9/11 and what caused the towers to come down, which of course were not airplanes. I can't even look at that anymore and think for 1 second. I don't understand how anybody can look at that and think that the planes are responsible for it. And I hesitate. It's not necessarily that you're simple-minded. It's that you're under hypnosis. You're programmed. I know. But the world that you think you live in, the world that you think that there's such a thing as this International Crimes Court, and that people that fall under this umbrella are going to... Does Bibi look worried to you that he's going to be arrested? Maybe that, I remember hearing during Trump's inauguration that Bibi won't be there. He wasn't even invited. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that was because they would have gotten some heat. Other critical thinkers would have said, hey, wait a minute. that guy has an arrest warrant for him. There's an arrest warrant for this guy issued by the International Crimes Court. I saw an interview with Trump on Air Force One. I believe he was on his way to the Super Bowl. And different journalists were asking him questions. And he started talking about Gaza and Israel and what happened, and about how Israeli hostages are still being released, which I want to say real quick. What happened on October 7th, whether it was allowed to happen, whether Israel was responsible or just solely Hamas, whatever happened on October 7th is horrible. Okay? I do not wish harm on Israeli people, even if I am very critical of the Israeli government, even if I am very critical of the IDF, and or you hear me talk about some of the things that are in the Jewish doctrine, in the Torah or the Talmud, things that I disagree with, I do not wish harm on any Jews. Okay? I am not anti-Semitic. I love Jews just as much as I love anybody on this planet. Muslims, Christians, I think Buddhists are probably pretty easy to... I don't know. I've never really heard anybody have too much of an issue with Buddhists. They're just kind of like really gentle, good people, I think, generally speaking. Interesting enough. But I don't want to be misunderstood here, okay? However, I am saying that everybody in this world can be held accountable regardless of what has happened to their ancestors. What happened to the Jewish people, or the Ashkenazis, or the descendants of Khazars, whatever they are, whether they're ethnic or converts, whatever happened to those people, and not just the Jews, but the prisoners of war, the Jehovah's Witness, everybody, the gypsies, all of that was horrible. And it should be them and the descendants of those people that would be the last people on earth to do that to somebody else. Gaza was a genocide. 18,000 children, and I think that's conservative. I think that that's a politically, I don't know. Let's just say 18,000 children. That's fucking insane. And Trump's being interviewed by these journalists, and he's making a correlation to what happened to the captives, those taken hostage by Hamas. He's comparing it to the Holocaust because he's using trigger words. Okay, shame on you, Trump. Horrible, of course. 1,200 people, that's a lot of people, but not even a fucking sliver compared to 18,000 people. Who thought that was the correct response? 1,200 people were killed and somewhat taken hostage. So we should go kill nearly 70,000 men, women, children, grandparents, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, families in return. That is closer and should be more comparable to the Holocaust. And even, I'm not going to get into the whether or not how many people were gassed, whether or not certain camps had gas chambers, or whether the amount of ovens could have. There's some real questions there. I urge people to go out and actually research that. Does it change what what happened and whether or not it was bad. No, I'm not saying that. But I think that there's the narrative that we were taught there. There's a lot of really strong evidence as to say that what we were told happened did not happen to the degree and or the way we were told it happened. And in fact, I'm going to say this again. If you go to the website of Auschwitz and Birkenau Museum, in 1989, the number changed from just over 4 million people dying, the vast majority being Jews, to just over 1 million people dying, the vast majority being Jews. And so, because the total number 6 million included that 3 million before the revision, not the denial, but the revision, because that number included the 3 million that they say did not exist now, that means, easy math, 6 million, half. Half of 6 million. It's not 6 million anymore, it's 3. Is 3 million horrible? Of course it is. But we can't look at revisionists as, there's something definitely okay with understanding and or the desire to understand history accurately. I think that it's not okay to marginalize all of the other groups that experienced atrocities during that time. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. And when you do, it's like this programming has taken place. It's like, wait a minute, you're taking the attention off of all the Jews that died. No, we're not. We're not. We're not. And I know not everybody thinks that, but it's like it's really mind-boggling. And if you pay attention, there's definitely that sentiment by many people. So I want to know how is it that a fugitive of the International Crimes Court is welcome? I believe that was in the United States, is welcome in the United States. And if not, then why is our president and or presidents, it's not just Trump now, it was Biden too, why are they rubbing shoulders with a fugitive? Did I miss something? Is that a rumor? Is it not true? Because I did some Googling, which again, I've warned people, be careful about Google. But I looked at multiple sites, and it sounds like Benjamin Netanyahu has in fact had a warrant issued for his arrest by the International Crimes Court. Putin. I don't know that Trump met with him in person, but I thought that he had been, does he not have a warrant? And if he doesn't have a warrant, well, I guess maybe Zelensky gets a pass. But Zelensky's not innocent in all this either. Zelensky, Biden, Boris Johnson, war dogs. I guess I could maybe see how they're not considered criminals because they didn't implement the Minsk Peace Accords, but they sure were responsible for a lot of deaths. Here's an interesting. I'd love to hear people comment and give me some direction on this, because there are vastly different numbers given as to how many people have been killed in Gaza. Vastly different numbers given as to how many people have died in the Ukraine and Russian war. I heard Trump himself say over 1 million people have died. I'm certainly not somebody that believes that Trump is just completely accurate about everything that he says. Most definitely not. But this is the president, and he does get intel briefings. So is that accurate? Is that correct? Where do we get, the Red Cross is supposed to have some credibility when it comes to specifically like death tolls and wars. Uh, so you don't live in the world you thought you did. And I'm being critical of Trump when it comes to Israel and what's happened in Gaza. But I was critical of Biden. And if Kamala would have made it to office, there wouldn't be anything different. I've said it's not just Bibi, but the state of Israel. And it's not even just, it's like this invisible web that runs between, it's the powers behind the scenes that dictate the United States, that dictate the UK, that dictate Israel, and now Ukraine, and it wouldn't be any different. This is just non-negotiable. Fight over abortion, fight over racial issues, civil rights, taxes, government corruption. Not Israel. You are not getting away with Israel. Carter was, he got his hands dirty, you might say. Carter dove in. The Camp David peace accord with Begin and Sadat, or however you say his name, the prime minister of Israel, the leader of Egypt, and the peace and 12 days at Camp David to try to make some progress there. And Trump says, I think Carter wasn't reelected. He only served one time because he sold Panama Canal for $1 to Panama. It wasn't back to Panama, but to Panama. I'm sure that played a role in it, but I think it's probably more likely because he wanted peace in the Middle East between Israel and the Arab nations, particularly Egypt. That was not good for the Greater Israel Project. This is why. We need to, whatever president we have in office needs to be pro-Israel, pro-Israel, pro-Israel. Turn Gaza into prime real estate, the Riviera of the Middle East. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. The politics that you think exist for a huge portion of people in the United States just does not. It just not. Prove me wrong. Like, subscribe, comment below, hit the notification button. Until next time.